First up, let's talk to Sir Desmond Swayne, Conservative MP, who's been speaking out many, many times about the restrictions on our freedom. And Sir Desmond Swayne, Saturday night, Prime Minister calls a press conference. We know that's never good news. He announces new mask mandates and new travel restrictions. What did you make of that?
Well, I've decided that I'm now immune, not so much immune as exempt. I'm exempt from wearing a mask on the basis of my genetic predisposition to liberty. And I hope that many other people will take that view as well. I mean, I think this is utter hysteria. The reality is, yes, we've discovered a new variant. Have any of the people with the new variant been seen to be much iller than before? No, there's no evidence of that before. So let's have resort to the thing that we know doesn't make a blind bit of difference to anything, but is a thorough inconvenience and makes us all as if we're living in a dystopian world. Let's mask everyone up to heighten up the anxiety.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? Because this is the thing. I'm fascinated by the people who think it's not a big deal. I thought it wasn't a big deal last year in the summer when they were saying, look, if we wear masks, it'll reassure those people who were a bit anxious about coming out and living life normally. And I thought, do you know what? Small price to pay. Let's do it. I realised very, very quickly that actually it wasn't a small price to pay. And the right to show your face in public, to be able to communicate with people, to smile with to passers-by in the supermarket or wherever on the bus, is actually really, really important. We are social beings. We need to be able to communicate with each other. And given, as we spoke to Carl Hennigan, there is really no evidence that the masks that people wear routinely make any difference whatsoever, as we can see in the rising cases in countries with mandated masks. We know that it's just theatre, don't we?
Exactly. And every time I have asked for the evidence, I've been told it's about sending a message. Well, I don't like the message. I don't like the message that they're sending out to try and terrify us. It's been responsible for so much damage. If masking had any effect, they'd make us do it properly, because we're not mandated to wear a mask. We're mandated to wear a face covering. Yeah. Any covering that you might like. And I'm afraid most people wander around as if they're wearing an old pair of underpants, and they're probably as filthy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the reality, isn't it? Last night, Nadeem Sahawi, the Education Secretary, just a couple of hours after the news was slipped out, it wasn't announced on the Sunday morning shows, it wasn't announced in the press conference on Saturday, that secondary school pupils, year 7 and above, from today were going to be told, well, they were told in the Department for Education Guidance they should wear face masks in communal areas, as should visitors to the school. That was not given a full announcement, it just slipped out. Within hours of him making that decision as Education Secretary, Nadeem Sahawi was at a teaching awards ceremony for hundreds and hundreds of people, all dressed up to the nines, all sitting there with not a mask in sight from all the photographs that I've seen of the event. Nadeem Sahawi there, also not wearing a mask. Now, no law being broken, no rules. The rules aren't in place now. They're not required for hospitality anyway. But what do you make of a government minister telling children that who, by the way, most of whom have already had COVID, who are, infinitesimally small risk of COVID, telling them that they in their schools today will have to wear masks, and just hours earlier going to a big hospitality event where no one's wearing masks involving teachers? What do you make of that?
Well, actually, I'm all for any minister anywhere not wearing
masks.
Oh,
me too.
We should take his reluctance to do so as a signal to the rest of us.
But that's the key thing, isn't it? This is the thing. We know that government ministers, when the cameras aren't on them, do not wear masks. They do not. You know that for a fact. I know that for a fact. And yet they're telling our children, they're telling us when we're on public transport and in a shop to wear masks. So we know it's just about theatre. We know it's not about anything to actually do with stopping the spread of a virus.
My understanding from the pupils I've spoken to is that they hate it. Every time I visited a nursery, I've been specifically told that we don't wear them because it upsets the children. It is one of the most odd things that we've required people to do, given that we all know they don't make a blind bit of difference. And if anyone is looking for evidence of that, Scotland is the example. where they've been required to maintain masks all along, and the infection rates have been significantly higher than in England throughout.
Which simply can't be possible if masks work, could they? There we are. Well, look, let's talk about some of the questions from the media on Saturday night. I mean, almost to a man and a woman, they were saying, why aren't you bringing in more restrictions? They didn't ask for any evidence for the restrictions that were brought in. Demands for full Plan B, Labour Party going that way, vaccine passports, working from home recommendation, and mandatory masks, pretty much everywhere, including hospitality and the like. Do you think there's any likelihood that Plan B will be brought in, or do you trust that, look, it's the Prime Minister's doing this, is 3 weeks, taking the advice from Sage and his Valance and Whitty, and the idea is that this will just be a temporary measure? Do you think in 3 weeks' time we'll all be back to normal if we discover this new variant isn't an issue?
Well, I certainly am praying that is the case. I mean, the only thing that I can say about the government's reaction is that the opposition would have been worse, as they had been throughout. Remember, they didn't want us even to come out of lockdown and remove the restrictions back in July, which turns out to have been actually a very clever move, because the increase in infection rate has actually set us up well for the winter, because most people have had it. But so my expectation is that, like the development of any successful variant, which can outcompete the Delta variant, because remember, the Delta variant's great advantage is it transmits so readily. Well, if there's a new variant that can transmit even more successfully than the Delta variant, it is likely to be more benign in its effects, because, a successful variant is not going to put people to bed or into hospital where they can't get out and mix.
Well, indeed, we spoke to Dr. Angelique Coetzee, who's from South African board, a health board, who actually was one of those who first identified this new variant from patients in her own GP surgery in Pretoria. And all the patients that she and the other GPs in the area, where in the Gauteng province where this has been found, they have seen only mild patients. They've not seen a big uptick in cases of people needing hospitalisation. So it does suggest at the current time that there isn't anything to worry about.
Yes, so why are we running around like headless chickens? I mean, it is bizarre. And it's quite clear that although we've just discovered this variant, it's been about for some time. Hey, there are 6 people in Scotland. Those are just the 6 people that we've found.
Yeah. In terms of where we go forward, what would you like the government to do?
I'd like the government very swiftly to reverse the measures that it's taken. As soon as it becomes clear that there is no serious risk to us, I think that it should return to the status quo ante. As Professor Carl Hennigan said, we're in a very strong position. Let's take advantage of it rather than, make ourselves miserable again.
So Desmond Swayne, Conservative MP, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.